What's up, guys? It's TechnoViking23 coming to you today with some Destiny, and we're going to be talking about the House of Wolves. More specifically, my overall opinion so far of the House of Wolves. It's going to be kind of my review of the new expansion for Destiny. Now, I've been playing House of Wolves now for about a week, so I think I've gotten a pretty good grasp on overall everything that the expansion has to offer, and so I think I can finally sit down and kind of give my thoughts on the game. So, as usual with, is kind of the theme with Bungie now with Destiny. It seems like every time they do something good, there's like an equally bad counterpoint for it. It's like, you know, the good and the bad, or the give and the take. And I think that seems to be an overlying thing with Destiny all the time. So there are some good things in the House of Wolves. There's also some bad things. There's also some really crappy things that I've found. And we're actually going to go in and take a look at some of those and see what's going on. But I'm going to call this review the good, the bad, and the ugly of House of Wolves, basically. So for those of you who don't like the doom and gloom, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the good parts, actually, what I've been enjoying about House of Wolves. And then we'll get into the bad and finally the ugly, and then I'll give my closing thoughts. So first off, the best thing so far that's been really enjoyable about House of Wolves really has been the way they've made gear more accessible in terms of getting legendary gear. There are a lot more gear drops in the Crucible playlist. There's a lot more gear drops in the Strike playlist. It now actually feels like you do sort of get more rewarded for the time you put into the game because they've added a lot more legendary armor and weapon drops to the playlists. Now, when I'm talking about that, it's not just legendary armor like it used to be, or legendary engrams like it used to be. Now you can actually get weapon drops. You can actually get armor drops as an actual piece of armor that you can immediately use. You don't even have to take it to the Cryptarch to get decoded. So that is definitely a plus. That's going to be something that's going to help out a lot of casual players at least get to level 32, because that's now how you get to level 32. All the vendor armor, all the legendary armor will get you to level 32 automatically. So that's been a good thing, definitely. It's a lot, just feels a lot better to play, especially with the Crucible, and that's what I'm going to get into now, is that PvP really got a ton of love with this expansion, and that is definitely a good thing, at least in my opinion. Now, guys, keep in mind, I'm someone who enjoys the Crucible in Destiny. I think the PvP has a lot of potential with this game, like everything else. But I know there's a lot of people who don't like PvP in Destiny, so there's always a lot of haters whenever I talk about the Crucible. I do realize it does have lots of balance issues. I won't even deny that. The Crucible, and it drives me crazy a lot of the times. There's lots of balance issues in the Crucible. Lots of overpowered weapons and lots of things that they really just need to look at, but so far they haven't for whatever reason. So what we're actually going to take a look at today when I talk about this is the good parts of the Crucible. So I can talk about the bad stuff anytime, but you know, this expansion really did a great job overall to make the Crucible a lot more playable. First off, like I said, you're getting much better rewards. I've noticed that there's a lot of legendary items dropping in the Crucible now. It seems to be almost every other match. I myself personally have gotten quite a few new legendary weapons from the Crucible, so that's been really awesome. And it does seem like the people that are finishing on the top of the leaderboard are getting quite a bit more gear. In terms of better gear, in terms of getting weapons and things like that. Whereas before it was like anybody in the match, even the guy going like 0.23 KD was going to get an exotic. You know, that seemed to be the overall problem with the Crucible before in terms of the rewards. But now it seems like everybody is getting the rewards based on where they finish. You know, in the overall scheme of the match, I've still seen some people at the bottom of the leaderboard going 0.5 getting legendaries, but for the most part, it seems to just be the people who are finishing at the top of the leaderboard. The other great change to PvP was with the amount of marks and reputation you gain. They've pretty much doubled that across the board for all the Crucible playlists. So it's now much easier to get those Crucible marks, buy that Crucible armor and weapons, which is something I really like because I don't really level up the Crucible, but I do level up my factions. And of course, in order to buy the faction weapons and faction armor, you have to have Crucible marks, which, considering you can get Vanguard, you can do Vanguard bounties to level up factions, I think it should be both. But now, at least, it's a lot easier to get those Crucible marks, so you should be able to purchase some of that faction gear and weapons a lot faster, and that's definitely something I've found that's pretty true. Before, it used to be a chore to reach the weekly cap in Crucible marks for me. I just didn't want to play that many matches. It took me forever to get to 100. But now, literally within a day or two of some PvP, I am already at the mark cap for the week for Crucible marks, so it's a lot easier. So overall, they've just made playing Crucible playlist much more enjoyable. I found myself branching out, playing a lot more game modes. I've been playing some salvage and some skirmish and some other things. But it's just overall, like I said, made the Crucible a lot more enjoyable. And to continue on that point, we got 4 new Crucible maps. Well, if you're on PS4, you got 4 new ones. Only 3 on the Xbox. But now I'm playing mostly on PS4, so I've got all 4 of those. The 4 new Crucible maps they put in are amazing. They're a lot better, in my opinion, than a lot of what was already in the game. My favorite is Widow's Court. That has got to be the best map, in my opinion, in PvP in this game. It's just so well laid out. It's so visually appealing, and it gives you a lot of different options. There's some long-range sight lines in it where you can snipe or use a scout rifle. There's some, close quarters interior rooms where you can go with your shotgun or whatever you want to use. But overall, it's just a great map. It has great flow to it. It's really awesome on control matches and just gives you a lot of different ways you can play it, a lot of different ways you can attack and set up your play style. So that has definitely been my favorite map to play so far in the Crucible. And also on PlayStation 4, the exclusive that we got was Timekeeper, which is a very hectic, very close quarters map. It reminds me a lot of Nuketown from Call of Duty. A lot of people, if you guys play COD, you'll remember Nuketown. It's just this really small, tiny map where it's just hectic and there's a lot of close quarters fighting going on. It's crazy, and it can be a lot of fun. Now, a lot of people might not like that, but it can really be quite a bit of fun, and Timekeeper so far has been an absolute blast, especially since they added in a different dynamic in that you have control flags that are underneath. Like, you have a multi-level map, and there's like some control flags that are underneath. Like, you'll be standing over top of it and think you're on it, but it's actually beneath you, and there's people under there that can shoot up to the ceiling, and it's really overall very cool. So they've done a really great job designing the new Crucible maps, having a lot of fun on those. So again, lots of PvP love in this expansion. Now we're moving on to the big part of this expansion. Obviously, one of those was the Trials of Osiris, and that is the PvP event, the 3 versus 3 kind of hardcore mode where you go on there, and it's a little bit like skirmish, and I'm going to get into that's going to be part of my bad topic. But overall, Trials of Osiris seemed to be pretty fun. I don't have any issues at all with the lighthouse. I know a lot of people are complaining big time that PvP gets its own like kind of special social area, and a lot of people don't like that, which I can understand. But at the same time, PvP really needs that. They need something like that in Destiny. I'm glad that we've got that now for the PvP players, especially for the elite PvP players, because quite honestly, Destiny PvP does not have really anything to set it apart or make it like some of the other PvP shooter games out there where you do have some special things in there for your better players. So I think the Lighthouse is fine. I think it's great. I see so many people talking about how it's not fair, you can't get there. Well, you can get there if you play the game and you win 9 matches in a row. And I know there's been some cheating and lag stuff going on with Trials of Osiris, but honestly, if you're a good enough player, you can get to the Lighthouse with a little bit of work. And it's just, there's a lot of that entitlement generation that plays Destiny, and they just want to have access to all the stuff. Whereas I can see on the Prison of Elders side, I do have a couple complaints about some things there, which I'll get into, but in terms of Trials of Osiris, I think it's great. If you play well and you get there, you deserve it, you get the loot, you get the items. I think that's great. I think it's a great addition for PvP, because personally, Iron Banner to me was supposed to be that way, but unfortunately, so many of the casual and the entitled players really just railed against it and said it's not fair that we can't play Iron Banner, and it's not fair that there's level advantages, and it's just not fair that, we can't compete. So what Bungie basically did was they neutered the Iron Banner to where right now it's like, even with the level advantages on, like I played the last Iron Banner as a 28 versus all the 32s and still did really good. There's just really no, Iron Banner is just really not, in my opinion, what it was supposed to be. And so I'm glad that Trials of Osiris is in the game now to give the hardcore PvP players something to play, something they can enjoy. Definitely was much needed. So moving on, okay. Let's see, what else do we have here for the good? Sadly, it's mostly just about the PvP. Now let's talk about the new social area, the reef. Now, personally, I don't think the reef is all that great. It's really small. It's really tiny. There's hardly any vendors in it. There's really nothing to do there. It's just kind of an alternative to go to the tower. You can't even do as much there as you can in the tower since you don't have the faction vendors. You don't have the gunsmith to reforge your new weapons, things like that. But they did introduce two very cool new characters with this DLC, and that is Petrovenge and Varix the Loyal. I love Varix. I think he is awesome. He's probably one of the best NPCs in this game, which is pretty crazy considering the game's been out for almost 9 months. And one of the new DLC characters is probably one of the best actual NPCs in the game. It's just more evidence that Bungie really doesn't care about developing some of the PvE stuff. They don't care about character development or developing even the NPCs so that you care about any of them. Petra is also pretty cool. I like her much better than Eris, But again, and I'm going to get into this in the bad part, you know, it's like they put these new characters in there that have so much awesome potential, but they really don't do a whole lot of development with them. But I do like the new characters that have come in and are on the reef, especially when you're playing Prison of Elders and Varix is talking to you. He's pretty cool. I like the way he talks to you. He's kind of weird, but he's like that cool weird. So definitely enjoying the newer characters they put in. That is definitely something that's pretty good. And then I'll move on, I guess, for my last little bit of good, I will talk about Prison of Elders. Prison of Elders has actually been pretty fun, I will say. I was kind of skeptical because obviously it's a horde mode, and that's something I think we have enough of already in Destiny, so I didn't think it was going to be that great, but it's been pretty fun so far. However, I also, like I said, you know, there's good and there's bad with everything that Bungie does, and that's something I'm going to talk about when we get into the bad section. So let's just go ahead and jump right into that, guys. So that's the good is out of the way. The positive, like I said, most of it's just PvP, PvP related. This was a great expansion for PvP, which I will cover in my overall section at the end. But let's move on to the bad part. Now, I just mentioned Prison of Elders, how it's been pretty fun so far. The problem is it is really repetitive. It's the same thing every time. It's a horde mode. It's just like half the stages in the campaign. Except you go into a circular arena and you fight through 3 waves of enemies with some modifiers depending on each round. And like I said, it's very exciting when you first go into it. It's pretty cool because because it's new. It's a new feature, you know, so you go in there and you play it. But, you know, I've played about 15 matches of Prison of Elders, and at this point, it's kind of worn off. It's just kind of like, well, this was cool when I first started playing it, but now it's not so great. It's very repetitive. It's very... like I said, that's pretty much it. It's very repetitive, it's very simplistic, and unless you really love to do the simplistic, grindy content that's already in this game over and over and over again, you're probably going to get bored and burned out on Prison of Elders pretty quick. It's just not something that's going, in my opinion, going to be able to sustain the game for a long time, unlike a raid. If they are planning on putting a new raid in as part of House of Wolves, which a lot of people, a lot of fanboys, and a lot of people that defend Bungie have said, oh, we're still getting a raid, it's coming, it's going to be free and all that. If they're going to do that, they really need to do it pretty soon, because I just don't see Prison of Elders being able to sustain the PvE community for a long time, given its current model. Because, like I said, it's just very easy, it's very repetitive. And people have already beaten, you know, within hours of the DLC coming out, people had already beaten the level 34, the level 35, they'd already gotten all their etheric light and their armor, and they've already gotten to level 34 within hours of the DLC being out. So you've already reached level cap within hours of the DLC coming out, which I think is a problem. Definitely that's something else I'm going to talk about here. The other thing I mentioned before was no character development. Obviously they give us these really cool new characters with Varix and Petra, but there's no development unless you want to go read the Grimoire, which of course you have to go outside the game for, which of course I still have a huge problem with. It's just pretty... Everything that... A lot of the stuff Bungie does with PvE in this game is just so lazy. It's just so lazy for them. It's just, you know, it shows no effort at all. And I really don't know why they continue to just, you know, waste our time making us go outside the game to find something, when they should do something more like what Mass Effect has, where there's a codex right there in the game that you can do. So that is one problem. Like I said, you know, I really thought Petra and Varix were great additions to the NPC character cast of Destiny, because obviously there are NPC characters in the tower, but you really don't care about them. And at least Petra and Varix are kind of cool. They're characters you can relate to a little bit more and seem to be a bit more involved with the storyline, but at the same time, obviously, you don't really get much on them, so that is definitely a problem. And something that Bungie has just had issues with as they've been trying to make this game. So that's the other big thing is, where's the Queen? This is the Queen's Wrath. This is the Reef. This is the House of Wolves expansion. You know, the Queen was in the trailer. The Queen and her brother were probably two of the only NPCs playing through the game the first time in vanilla Destiny that anybody kind of had interest in. They were the most prominent NPCs, really, that occurred in the storyline. You know, helping you get to the Black Garden and going through bars and everything. And yet we have the DLC and we have no Queen. We don't have her brother. They don't even make an appearance. The only time the Queen actually comes into the game is after you capture Skolas in the last part of the PvE quest, and she basically just tells you she thought you were a piece of crap. But now that you've done this for her, she thinks that you're pretty awesome, and that's pretty much it. Then she gives you a crappy blue weapon. So yeah, no Queen, no Queen's brother. In the Queen's Wrath. Kind of weird to me. I really thought they should have had her in here. I thought we were going to at least get to see her. Maybe we will. Maybe they're going to open up something else. Who knows? We'll see. Let's see. All right, what else is bad? Okay, so the new enemies, when you play the game, again, you will notice that there are some different versions of the Fallen now with House of Wolves. They're not really new. They just reskinned a few of them, and then they basically gave them new names. They put the name Wolf in front of them, like Wolf Captain or Wolf Servitor or, you know, whatever you want to call it. They really haven't done a whole lot to, you know, really they haven't done anything to make the game, make the enemies better or more appealing or more variety or any of that stuff. So that is, that's just another bad thing about the game. It's just no variety. Again, it's just laziness again, more laziness. All right, now let me get into the bad. Like I mentioned, Trials of Osiris as a positive is part of the good, but there's also part of it's bad. And I'm going to talk about Prison of Elders as well with this, is basically Trials of Osiris, while it's a cool event, they've given it all the gear and they made it really hardcore, all it is, guys, is glorified skirmish, played on the same map over and over again. It's a game mode that was already in the game. They just made some additions to it, made some changes to it. It's kind of like when they gave us Inferno Control as sort of a free add-on variation of Control with some hardcore modifiers. That's all Trials of Osiris is. It's not some amazing, super awesome PvP event. It's just basically a redo of Skirmish. It's not something, in my opinion, that should be a paid add-on as part of the DLC that you should have to pay $20 to get. And I have the same opinion of Prison of Elders. It's a repetitive horde mode type content. It's not something that should be a paid add-on for $20 of DLC. It should have been a feature that was already in the game. If you look at a lot of other first-person shooter games, let's look at it. Let's see. Call of Duty has always had a survival mode, a horde mode. The newer CODs have had zombies. The older Call of Duties had kind of the Spec Ops maps, the survival modes where you could purchase guns and gear after each round was over with. All the first Gears of War had horde mode. Mass Effect 3 had horde mode. Halo Reach had horde mode. Halo ODST. I could go on and on and on of all the games that have had horde mode as part of their initial product offering. It's a feature that should be in the game from launch. It's not something, like I said, that we should have to pay for as an add-on as $20 DLC. And while it is fun, like I said, it's just so repetitive. I just don't see it lasting very long to keep a lot of players in the game. So that is the one issue with the game so far. In terms of the two new add-on models for DLC were just basically features. They were basic features that should have already been in the game. It's not new content. It's nothing, no innovative, additions to it. So that's one thing I think is kind of bad about this DLC is we're all paying for something that really is just making Destiny more of a complete game than it should have been at launch. And that sucks. It kind of sucks. Like, we should be getting the launch we should be getting this stuff when the game came out. It's just, but I guess with the simplistic kind of mobile gaming generation crowd they're trying to appeal to with this game, I guess it doesn't matter. People are just glad to get whatever they can at this point. So, like I said, once the newness and the fresh coat of paint type thing wears off from this DLC in a week or two, I think you're going to see a lot more people complaining about it. But that's just my thoughts on that. That is it for the bad section. Now we're going to move on to the ugly. And yes, there are some rather ugly things in this DLC. And one of those is going to be the story, or lack thereof. Now, a lot of people, I think at this point, a lot of us have just given up. Any of us who are serious about wanting more PvE, story development, and things in Destiny, I think a lot of us are just giving up at this point because basically we're just not going to get it. It's something we have to realize. It's just not going to happen. We're not going to get it. So, you know, we just need to forget about it, I guess. But the story missions that they gave us in House of Wolves are a joke. They're a freaking joke. Now, there is a lot of narration. I will give them that. They did add in a little bit more lore with the narration from Petra when she's talking about the Fallen and whatnot. You do learn a few things about the Fallen and about the game. But overall, it's terrible. Now, a lot of people hated the Dark Below. They didn't like Eris. They didn't like the stories. And it's funny because I think that they did a much better job with the story missions in the Dark Below than they did in House of Wolves. And just hear me out, I'm going to explain why I think that is. First off, the rewards that you get for doing the stories in House of Wolves are pathetic. It's just terrible. You're a level 30 or level, whatever you are, playing up through it. And the rewards you're getting each time you finish one of these matches is basically like, it's a blue piece of armor, a blue weapon that you can only use if you're like level 28 or 24 or something. It's absolute crap. It's like, if I'm a level 32 and I'm playing through the story missions that are level 30, then why am I getting armor that I can't use? It's just silly. At least when you ran the Dark Below story missions, after every mission completion, you got a couple of engrams. You got a couple of blue engrams, which at least had a chance to turn into something. So that's one thing. And the other thing is they're just reusing a lot of the same areas. Instead of going through them, you just go through them backwards now with some different mechanics. But it's, again, just the same thing. Most of the story missions for House of Wolves, they reuse the Venus maps, the Archon Priest map. You do actually get to go into the Vault of Glass, which is kind of neat. But again, it's already an area that's in the game that you can already see. About the only new area they used was the Citadel on Venus. And unfortunately, that's something people had been glitching into since after the game came out. So it's an area that was already in there. It's not anything they added. That's new. So that's unfortunate. And again, they just don't, in my opinion, they just don't really care about the story of the game. They obviously don't care because they keep adding more to the Grimoire. But again, that's an outside website you have to go look at to get the lore in the game. They basically just continue to ignore story. Like I said, the rewards were pretty bad. You do get the Vestian Dynasty, which I will say is pretty cool. It's this sidearm you get here. This is a pretty cool weapon. This is pretty useful for shielded enemies. This actually has a little hidden perk on it that it doesn't have listed, but it will actually take down hobgoblins without triggering their shield lock, which is pretty cool. But it's if I had to compare this to Murmur, I think Murmur, when it came out, probably had a lot more use and was a lot more effective. But Vestian Dynasty is cool because it's a sidearm. It's like having a secondary hand cannon with a lot less range, and it fires very quickly. So you do get a little bit of use out of that. It is a pretty fun weapon to get. That you actually get that from, I think, the second mission, or the first mission, completing the first mission in the new House of Wolves story. So that's it for the story. That's pretty much all I wanted to comment on, really, with that. Now, moving on, I'm going to talk about one more ugly thing that's just drives me nuts with Destiny to this day, and I still don't know why Bungie will not put this in the game, and that is matchmaking. And now, guys, before you matchmaking haters come out with the pitchforks and everything to demolish me, just hear me out. I want matchmaking, but I want it to be optional. Keyword, optional. So all you guys out there who already have your teams and you say, oh, I don't want to play with scrubs. I don't want to play with random scrubs. Well, you don't have to. You got your team already. You can do that. This is for people like myself, personally, who I don't have a lot of time to play Destiny, even though I do make YouTube videos and stuff for it. Like I said, I say often I work all week. This is kind of a hobby on the side that I do. I don't have a lot of time to play the game. Maybe a couple hours a night if I'm lucky. And, normally I'll get on and run some bounties. I might run a Prison of Elders match or run some PvP. I don't have time to sit on LFG for 30 to 45 minutes trying to weed through all the garbage on there, trying to find a team that will want to take me through the raid, especially since I don't have the weapons that they require for it. So I definitely wish they had at least the option to have matchmaking. There's no reason for them not to, especially, they added it finally for the weekly strike. I don't know why they don't have it for the Nightfall, because obviously the Nightfall is just a harder version of the strike, of the strikes that are in the game. It's not like it's rocket science. People know how to do it. And I'm really getting tired of the elitism this is promoting in Destiny by not having matchmaking. I see all this crap spewed on the forums about how, oh, random scrubs and you suck and you don't have Galahorn, you can't do this. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And everybody seems to think random players are just these crappy people that can't play the game. I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth. I've been doing the Prison of Elders matchmaking. I've played most of the 28, done several matchmaking matches with Prison of Elders, and I have had excellent teams every time. You know, people use their mics when they want to, but you really don't need it for Prison of Elders, at least the lower levels, quite honestly, 'cause it's pretty simplistic. But at the same time, I have not had really any issues with AFKers or any of that stuff. That seems to only be a Vanguard Strike playlist thing. And even then, it's not the majority of the time as people try to make it out to be. That's the argument you always see against matchmaking, is like, oh, you're going to have AFKers and everything, and people that just want to hide in a corner and let you carry them. That's a very small minority of the time. That is not a constant problem that you're dealing with all the time in the game. But yeah, the game needs optional matchmaking badly. It definitely does. It's something that really, you know, I think should be in the game. I know a lot of people agree with me, and of course I know there's a lot of people who hate it, because there's a lot of elitist people who have their teams and their clans and everything who think only they should have access to certain content, or if you don't have a team, you shouldn't be able to play certain parts of the game. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And the one really, really ugly thing that I've noticed with House of Wolves is the looking for group sites before were kind of bad in that they're very elitist in what they want. When you're trying to find a team, they'll only take you if you have certain weapons, if you have certain level, things like that. House of Wolves has made it even worse, because obviously they jumped the level cap up to 34, and you know, like I mentioned before, so many people were level 34, you know, the first couple hours the game was out, because they had a team or a clan to play with all the higher level Prison of Elders and get that etheric light and everything else. And now when you go on looking for a group, it's so funny, because for all the Nightfall strikes, it's basically like, must be level 34, must have Yallarhorn, must have raid primary, you know, with elemental damage. It's just so funny, like they just don't want to take anybody unless you have all the top gear in the game, unless you're totally maxed out on everything. And if you're someone like me, who I've been playing since launch on Xbox, at least, PlayStation 4 only for about a month, or actually only about a couple weeks, really. I have been playing on Xbox. I probably have about 15 days of total playtime across my 3 characters. I have yet to get a Yallarhorn. I have pretty much all the exotic weapons except for Thorn and Yallarhorn. Never seen one drop. It's definitely never dropped for me. And that's just the terrible RNG that's in the game. And because of that, you know, a lot of people, I'm not saying it's happened to me personally, but a lot of people are alienated against when they try to go on looking for group and try to find a group to play the game. It's like, so many people want Yallarhorn for their group. It's like, if you don't have it, we don't even bother asking to be in our group, or trying to get somebody to help you play through the game. And now with the higher end Prison of Elders, obviously, since there's Arc Burn and Void Burn and lots of shielded enemies, people want you to have those raid primary weapons that have elemental damage. So if you have been unable to acquire one of those, well, tough luck for you. And also, you know, because of that, if you try to get in, you know, the only way to acquire those, obviously, is if you actually go into a hard mode raid and acquire those weapons. Well, now people don't want to take you on a hard mode raid unless you have Yallarhorn, or unless you're level 34. It's just, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's really a bad thing that's happened. And I don't think it was intended on Bungie's part. I don't think they meant for that to happen, but they really did make it a lot more difficult to get a looking for group site team going to play any of the endgame content. So there's a lot of people like me. Honestly, I've already come to grips with the fact that I'll probably never be able to reach level 34 quickly. I'm not going to be able to get a group for Prison of Elders, or to do the higher end Prison of Elders, or for Trials of Osiris, or any of that stuff, because, like I said, I'm pretty casual. I play for a few hours a night, and I don't have time, number one, to waste on looking for group. My general experience with looking for group has not been positive. It's usually go on there, spend 20 to 30 minutes trying to find somebody to play with, and then when you finally do find somebody to play with, somebody starts complaining, or there's other problems, and then eventually what happens is people just quit, or if you run a raid with them, they all leave at the first sign of trouble, and it just gets really aggravating, and I don't want to deal with it. And that's my choice, that's my decision. So I'm not going to complain too much about not being able to play the in-game content, because I choose not to use looking for group most of the time, because I just think it's a bad model. I don't think it works very well, in my opinion, of course. Now, I know there's a lot of people that have had good luck with it, and that's great. But like I said, in my opinion, I don't think it's a great thing, so to speak. And you know, that's about it. I'm kind of babbling now, so I'm trying to remember what else I was going to talk about. But that is pretty much it for the matchmaking issue. I think they really need to do something about that. It would really help out quite a bit if they would do You know, do at least optional matchmaking. It's going to open up so much more of the game to a lot of people, and it's not a bad thing. You know, it's not a bad thing if you let more players have access to your content. You know, especially since we all paid for the DLC. Like, why should we have to? Why should we be kind of excluded somewhat, albeit if it's voluntarily, from not being able to play in-game content because you know, you decided not to have any matchmaking? And like I said, guys, all random players are not scrubs who suck at the game. You know, I'd be willing to bet that most randoms like myself, you know, we know how to play Destiny, and we have a pretty good grasp of the game, and we are able to, you know, do well. We have a mic that we like to use, so it's like, don't always assume that you know, that random people are not good at the game. Now let me get on to the next bit of this, which is actually funny that I'm at this part and I'm doing this, because this is another thing I have a real problem with, and that is these stupid treasure chests that you have to pick up when you kill these bounty guys. I think this is a horrible, horrible idea, and if you guys didn't know, basically the only way to get keys to open the big chest in the Prison of Elders is to farm these patrol bounties. You can also get them from Petra when you turn in your 6 bounties each week, but most of the time she just gives you 10 spin metal or 10 relic iron and asks you to bend over. That's pretty much it. You can get them from the little chest in the Prison of Elders. If you guys have been in the treasure room, there's a big chest in the middle that's got all the sweet loot, and there's 2 little chests on the side that have a chance to give you a couple of good things, but most of the time they just give you a strange coin and a mote of light. They can very rarely drop treasure keys. I've had it happen once out of 15 runs, so the drop rate is not good. It's not good at all. You know, so if you guys are trying to farm Prison of Elders to get those keys, it's probably not going to work out too well. So right now, the only real consistent way to have a good shot at getting those treasure chest keys is by killing these bounties on patrol and opening up those chests. As you can see there, it gives you a bunch of blue engrams and some spirit blooms, or whatever the material for that planet is, and you also get some secondary or special ammo synthesis. So that right now is the only way to pick up a key consistently, really, for Prison of Elders to be able to use. So even after you play through the 5 rounds of Prison of Elders, no matter what level you're on, if you don't have a treasure key, you can't open the big chest in the middle, which means you can't access a lot of the really good loot that comes from playing Prison of Elders. I think that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that you have to grind something in Patrol outside the actual game mode you want to get the loot in. And the problem I have with it is the drop rate on those keys. Again, it's RNG like everything else in Destiny, which can be quite horrendous. You can grind these keys literally for hours and hours and hours and not even get one. I myself have not done that. I tried the first couple days when the patrol bounties came out prior to House of Wolves. I tried to play them for a while and never got any keys dropped from them. So I just quit. I said it's not worth it to me. You know, I don't want to do grind fest over and over and over again. If I want to do that, then I'll go back to playing an MMO game where I actually get something at the end of my grind where, you know, the problem with Destiny is you grind and grind and grind, but you're not guaranteed loot. You're not guaranteed to get anything good. It's completely random, which that's fine. That's the way they wanted to do it, whatever. But in most of the other games that I play, like the massive multiplayer games, you basically do have to grind, but you know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You're grinding because there's a weapon that you want to get. You're grinding because there's a piece of armor you want. And at the end of that grind, you get that piece of armor, you feel satisfied, and then people see you have that weapon or that piece of armor, and they're like, oh wow, that's really cool looking, where'd you get it? And then you can tell your story. And that's what I think they wanted to do in Destiny, because they always talk about, oh, every Guardian has a story and a legend and all that, but it's complete crap. They don't. But that's how you feel when you play, like if you play an MMO like Star Wars, The Old Republic, or even when I used to play Vanilla WoW back in the day, it's like, oh, well, that's a really awesome sword. You know, I must have grinded PvP for a couple hundred hours to get the materials I needed to get this sword. It took me 2 or 3 months to get it. And then I got it, but then really hardly anybody else has it, so it's kind of like everybody's like, oh, dude, that's awesome. Where'd you get that? And, you know, you have a story behind the weapon. You have a story behind the armor pieces you got, you know, from whatever monster you killed or raid boss you killed. That's just missing from Destiny. And that's something they need to figure out how to put into the game. And just having this grind for these treasure keys, it's just terrible. It's just terrible because you're just wasting time. You're not really accomplishing anything, like I said. And the drop rate on them is terrible. I probably opened at least 100 of those chests just running these silly patrol bounties over and over again, and I have yet to get one treasure key from any of them. I've seen people that get, you know, again, there's people that'll get 5 of them doing it for an hour, and there's people that will get none doing it for 3 days. So again, it's just more of that horrendous RNG loot system, and it should not be required to do that in order to enjoy getting the loot from Prison of Elders. So that's my main problem I have really with this game is even though they hid the grind, you know, they said in the reveal, the first reveal we got of House of Wolves was really pretty cool. When they talked about how it was going to be so much easier to get legendary gear, it was going to be so much easier to level up your guns. You know, you don't need, like, let me just show you this for example. I got the Fulcrum here. I got this in a Future War Call package, but you'll notice there is no longer any upgrade nodes in terms of attack power. I don't need materials to upgrade. I just need weapon parts and Glimmer. Well, actually, I do need helium filaments. Okay, I shouldn't say that. But there's no more of those. There's like at the end, and you need a 3 with the where you need all the shards to level them up. So they eliminated a lot of that, and a lot of us thought that meant, oh, that means there's not going to be quite as much grind in the game. Well, I was kind of skeptical when I saw that, of course, and basically the way I looked at it was if they're taking the grind out of getting the gear, they're going to add the grind in somewhere else. And the grind has been added in with the Etheric Light, only being able to get that from level 34 and the 35 guaranteed. Now you can't get it from the level 32 Prison of Elders, but it's a rare drop out of those chests again. But I knew they would hide the grind somewhere else in the game, and they have with the treasure keys and the loot in Prison of Elders. It's basically the only way you're going to be able to access that chest is if you get a treasure key drop, which of course, as you've seen here, as I've shown you and told you, you have to grind quite a bit to have a chance at getting those chests. So that is really aggravating. There's still tons of grind in Destiny. That aspect of the game has not changed. So that's pretty much it, guys, for the good, the bad, and the ugly, in my opinions, of House of Wolves. Compared to the Dark Below, I think it is a better expansion if you're talking about PvP. PvP definitely got the best part of this expansion, which I know a lot of people are upset about because in this game it just seems they continue to ignore the PvE side quite a bit. And that sucks because I'm one of those people, I enjoy a good story in my shooter games. You know, I loved Halo, the massive universe they created with Halo. I love Mass Effect because you've got so much story and lore and character development. Even the Gears of War series and other first-person shooters I've played. You know, I'm going to be honest, the sad thing really with Destiny is you can play through Destiny. You know, I've played through the campaign so many times in this game, I can't even remember. There's not one character I care about. There's not one character I can even relate to. And I compare that to playing Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3 back when I used to play Call of Duty. Even some of the Black Ops games, and even the latest Advanced Warfare. There's characters in Call of Duty who get so much development that you love them, you hate them. There's, you know, like Captain Price. There's other characters, Captain McTavish. There's, you know, all kinds of guys. General Shepard. You know, there's guys you love to hate. You think are awesome and cool, and it's just pretty sad because a 6 to 7 hour Call of Duty campaign has a lot more character development, a lot more story development, and just a lot more, you know, coherent things than all of Destiny has going for it, which sucks because this could be such an amazing sci-fi universe. It really could be if they would just give it a little bit of love and stop ignoring the lore and the story and put that stuff in the game instead of making us go to an outside site to try to get it. But guys, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. As Destiny, if you've seen a lot of uproar, like I mentioned before, over the Lighthouse and Trials of Osiris, that just proves to me even more that the main majority of the Destiny player base is of that you know, entitlement generation of, oh, everybody gets a trophy, everybody has to have something. You know, it's a simplistic mobile gaming generation that they're trying to appeal to because they see how much money that market gets and how much the simplistic content generates. So that is what we are probably unfortunately going to see from Destiny in the future. Now, moving on to my closing thoughts. Like I said, this expansion was great for PvP. PvP still does need quite a bit of work. It needs a lot more game modes. There's still not enough content there, I don't think, but there's still quite a bit. They did get a lot of good stuff with this expansion. Overall, though, Prison of Elders, like I said, it's fun, but it's very repetitive. I don't see it sustaining the PvE crowd very long, and if it's what we got in place of a raid, I think it was a pretty bad idea. But that's pretty much it. I don't see how this expansion is really, after a couple weeks, going to keep people interested. Because like I said, there's already people who are level 34 within hours of the DLC coming out. At that point, what are you going to do in the game? Like, what does it become? It's basically just a gear collection game at that point. It's like Pokemon or something, or Candy Crush with guns. It's not really a shooter game anymore. It's just you're only playing to collect more gear, which you really don't need because you're already level 34. So I really don't know what people are going to keep doing, or especially a lot of the YouTube people who do this game and rely on it for their channel solely, is how much there's really not much content in this game that you can even do videos on anymore. It's kind of hard even for me to find content and stuff to talk about. And that's why I'm going to continue doing my weapon reviews, because I think those are probably the most helpful content I can do at this point. I really don't think you guys want to be bored to death with seeing my loot drops every week, things like that. So that's pretty much the way I look at it. I don't really know what they're going for, but and like I said, it's interesting because now we've had a beta, we've had an alpha, or an alpha and a beta with Destiny, and now we've got 2 full expansion packs, which have been $20 each. And to be honest with you guys, Destiny still does not feel like a full game. It does not feel at all like a full game. It's getting there. It's close, but this is a game that still feels like it needs so much more to just be a good game. So I'm really not sure, what else we're gonna see. But if House of Wolves, if this initial offering is all that they're going to be doing for the game until the Taken King comes out, and this is what they pushed back for a couple months and then didn't even put a raid in it, I just don't see how this content is going to continue to sustain the game. Now, I know there's people who are still going to play, obviously. There's people that love the grind, that love the simplistic, repetitive nature of Destiny. And unfortunately, that is all I think we're going to get with this game. I don't think it's going to change. I hope I'm wrong. At this point, I'm 50-50 on the fence if I'm going to go for the Taken King or Comet, whatever it is. I'm probably going to play Destiny for a little bit longer, but there are some other games definitely that I'm looking forward to getting and eventually moving on from Destiny, probably, unless they make a lot of huge changes that sadly I doubt will happen. But we'll see. You never know. There's always a chance. There's always hope, I guess, for it, and we'll see what happens with Destiny. Anyways, guys, that's going to about do it for my review of the House of Wolves. Let me know what you guys think about it so far, if you've been enjoying it, if you're having fun with it. Like I said, Prison of Elders is pretty fun so far, but like I said, I'm going to be bored of this in about a week or two. So that is my overall thoughts here on the House of Wolves. I hope you guys are enjoying the expansion. Leave me your comments and your thoughts below. Let me know what you guys think about it. And if you even bought the expansion, if you're planning on getting it. If not, just how you feel about it so far. Would love to hear your thoughts, guys, definitely. So anyways, guys, it's been TechnoViking23 coming to you with some Destiny. Talking about the House of Wolves, my overall review. If I had to give it a grade, I'd probably give it a C-, because it's just barely average. Like I said, Dark Below is pretty bad. This is barely better, but if the only reason that it gets a little bit higher grade is because of the PvP changes and some of the PvP stuff that they put in the game. So anyways, guys, that is going to do it for me. Hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you again next time.